Rain fell hard over the alien city of Varus Prime. Neon lights reflected off wet metal streets as people hurried through the crowded market. Humans were rare here. Most came to trade, fight, or disappear. Ethan Cole came to forget. He walked through the narrow alleys with his hands in his coat pockets. His boots were old, his eyes tired, and his heart empty. He had no home now, no family, and no reason to care about anyone. The world had taken everything from him years ago during the Terran War. Since then, he drifted between planets like a ghost. The air smelled of oil and smoke. Vendors shouted in alien tongues, offering food, tools, or stolen tech. Ethan ignored them all. He just wanted a cheap drink and a place to rest, then a small voice stopped him. "Sir, please wait," he turned. A little alien girl stood in the rain. She was no older than 8 by human standards. Her skin pale silver with faint blue lines glowing across her cheeks. Her large golden eyes looked up at him with fear and hope. She wore a torn gray coat too big for her and clutched a small metal coin in her hand. Ethan frowned. "What do you want, kid?" She stepped closer, trembling. "Here's 5 credits, she said softly. "I just need a dad for one day." The market noise faded for a moment. Ethan stared at her, confused. "What did you say?" She looked down and whispered again. "I need a dad for one day, please." Ethan laughed once, but it wasn't real laughter. "Is this a joke? You trying to scam me?" She shook her head fast. "No, I have money. 5 credits. She held out the glowing coin with both hands. "I can pay. I just need you until tomorrow." Her voice cracked as she spoke. Rain ran down her silver face, but those golden eyes never blinked. Ethan could see she was serious. He sighed and looked around. Some people had stopped to watch. A few aliens whispered, amused. Ethan crouched to her level. "Kid, I'm not anyone's dad. You should go home." "I don't have one," she said. "I just need you to come with me, please." There was something desperate, something honest in her tone. It wasn't greed or trickery. It was pain. Ethan wanted to walk away. He had his own troubles. But something about her face made him stop. Maybe it was how small she looked against the rain. Maybe it was that word. Dad. A word he hadn't heard since his own daughter died years ago on a burning ship. He took a deep breath. "Fine. Where do you need to go?" She smiled weakly and nodded. "Follow me." They walked together through the wet streets. She said her name was Lyra. She didn't talk much, but every now and then she glanced behind them as if someone might be following. Ethan noticed her hands shake whenever a patrol drone passed overhead. "Why do you need a dad for a day?" he asked after a while. She hesitated. "Because tomorrow they will take me." "Who?" "The officials. The adoption court. They said I must choose one guardian before they give me to the man who bought me." Ethan stopped walking. "Bought you?" "You mean, yes," she said quietly. "But if I bring someone who signs as my father for one day, I can ask the court to wait. Just one more day." Ethan rubbed his face. This was insane. "And you think a stranger like me can help you?" "You are human," she said softly. "They don't like humans here." "That's why they will listen. They're afraid of you." Ethan didn't know whether to laugh or curse. "Kid, you picked the wrong guy." She shook her head again. "No, I saw your eyes when you dropped your coin at the shop. You didn't yell at the boy who took it. You just let him go. Kind people do that." Her words hit him harder than he expected. He looked away and kept walking. The rain grew heavier. They reached an old district filled with broken signs and rusted machines. Lyra stopped in front of a cracked building covered in vines. "We can stay here tonight," she said. Inside it was quiet and dark. The air smelled of dust. Ethan found an old lamp and turned it on. Faint light filled the room, showing a few scattered toys and a photo frame lying on the floor. In the picture, Lyra stood between 2 tall aliens. Her parents. Both were smiling, their eyes full of pride. Ethan picked it up and gave it to her. She took it slowly, her lips trembling. "They were gone 3 years ago," she whispered. The court said they were enemies. But they were not. They just wanted freedom. She sat down beside the lamp and hugged her knees. Ethan didn't know what to say. He had seen enough war to know how governments turned heroes into criminals. He sat beside her. "You got anyone else?" She shook her head. "Only this picture." Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. The building creaked in the wind. Ethan watched the little girl fall asleep beside the dim light, her tiny hand still holding the photo. He looked at her for a long time. Something in his chest moved, something he thought was long dead. He muttered to himself, All right, kid, one day. Just one. But deep down he knew it wouldn't be that simple. Because somewhere in the distance faint blue lights flashed, patrol drones searching for something. And Ethan had a bad feeling they were searching for her. Morning light slipped through the broken windows of the old building. The rain had stopped, but the streets outside still glowed wet under the rising sun. Ethan woke first. His back hurt from sleeping on the floor, yet his eyes went straight to the small figure curled up beside the lamp. Lyra was still asleep, holding the picture frame close to her chest. Her silver skin looked soft in the daylight, almost fragile. For a moment, Ethan thought about leaving. He could disappear, find a job off-world, pretend last night never happened. But he didn't move. He sighed and looked around the room. The walls were filled with strange alien marks, old family symbols maybe. On one wall he saw a small handprint painted in blue. It was Lyra's. Under it someone had written in alien script. He couldn't read it, but he could feel the warmth in it. A home once full of love, now silent. Lyra opened her eyes slowly. When she saw Ethan, she smiled. "You stayed." "Yeah," he said. "Guess I did." She sat up and brushed her hair back. "Thank you." He looked away, pretending to tie his boots. "You still think this court thing will work?" She nodded. "It must. It is the last rule my mother told me before she was taken." Ethan frowned. "Tell me what happened to them, Lyra." She looked down at her hands. "My parents worked in the energy district. They built things for the city. One day they found something deep below the tunnels. A machine older than the stars. They said it came from before our people met yours. They wanted to give it to the council, but the soldiers came first. They called it rebellion." Ethan listened quietly. He had heard stories like this before, discoveries hidden, people silenced. "They took my father," she continued. "Then my mother. I was small, but I remember the noise, the fire, the blue light everywhere. I ran and hid under the floors. A man found me later. He worked for the court. He said I was property now. My parents' blood made me a danger." Ethan clenched his jaw. "Property? You're a child." "That is how they see me," she said softly. "Tomorrow the court will give me to a man named Dareth Voln. He is rich. He buys children of rebels. They say he teaches them obedience. But no one ever comes back." Ethan felt a cold wave in his chest. "And you think me being there will stop him?" Lyra nodded. "The law says a child may choose one guardian for one day before final decision. If the guardian is from another species, the court must hear the case again. I just need you to stand beside me until the sun sets tomorrow. Then I can ask for freedom." He stared at her. "You really believe in this law?" She met his eyes. "I have nothing else to believe in." Ethan rubbed his temples. He wanted to tell her the truth, that courts were built for the powerful, not for kids with no names. But he couldn't say it. Her hope was the only thing keeping her alive. He stood up and walked to the window. Patrol drones still hovered far away, scanning the streets. "All right, kid. We'll go to your court. But after that, you do what I say, got it?" Her face brightened. "Yes." He handed her a piece of bread he'd bought from a night vendor. She took it with both hands and smiled as if it was the first real meal she'd had in weeks. As she ate, Ethan checked his gun, an old plasma sidearm with a cracked grip. He hadn't used it in years, but something told him he might need it soon. The city outside was waking up. Airships roared overhead. The market lights flickered on. People were already moving. Lyra packed the photo in her pocket and walked toward the door. Ethan followed, still wondering what he was getting himself into. Before they stepped out, she looked up at him. "Thank you for staying, Ethan." He paused, surprised she remembered his name. "Just doing my job, kid." She smiled softly. "No, you're doing more than that." Ethan didn't answer. He just opened the door and walked into the light. But as they stepped into the street, he noticed a shadow watching from across the road, a tall man with glowing blue eyes, speaking into a communicator. Ethan's instincts kicked in. He pulled Lyra close. "Stay near me," he said quietly, because now he knew one thing for sure. Someone already knew where they were. The court dome stood like a silver mountain in the center of Varus Prime. Its walls shimmered with light that made the whole sky glow. Every window reflected the face of power. People came here to beg, to plead, or to disappear. Ethan and Lyra stood before the giant gates. He wore an old jacket he'd tried to clean, and she had brushed her hair carefully, though her coat was still too big. Around them, guards in dark armor watched with cold eyes. The crowd parted as they walked up the steps. "Are you ready?" he asked quietly. Lyra nodded, clutching the old photo in her hand. "I am." Inside, the air was colder. The walls were lined with floating lights, and at the center stood the High Judge on a raised platform. Dozens of alien nobles sat in glass balconies whispering. Lyra's small footsteps echoed as she walked beside Ethan, the only human in the room. A voice announced, "Case 4819, the custody of Lyra, offspring of traitors." Ethan's stomach turned. Lyra held her head high, but her hands trembled. The judge, a tall alien with gray skin and eyes like glass, looked down at them. "You are the chosen guardian?" he asked Ethan. Ethan cleared his throat. "For one day, yes." Whispers spread around the room. Some nobles laughed softly. A human pretending to be a father was amusing to them. The judge raised a hand for silence. "The law allows this. Proceed." Lyra stepped forward. Her voice was steady, though small. "Your Honor, my parents were not traitors. They built the power core that lights this city. They wanted peace, not war. They died for truth." The judge looked bored. "Their intentions do not erase their crimes." Ethan felt anger rise in his chest. "Then show me the crimes," he said. "Show proof," a few nobles frowned. One whispered something to another. Humans rarely spoke in court and never with challenge. The judge's eyes narrowed. "You are out of order." "I'm her father today," Ethan said calmly. "That gives me the right to speak." Gasps filled the chamber. Lyra looked up at him with wide eyes. For the first time, she smiled a little. The judge sighed and gestured to a screen. Images flickered, explosions, soldiers, chaos. These were the acts of her bloodline. Ethan stared at the images, then at Lyra. "You think a child is guilty of what her parents did?" "The blood carries rebellion," the judge replied. "We ensure safety by control." Ethan shook his head. "Where I come from, we call that fear." A silence spread across the hall. Lyra looked at him with pride now, standing a little taller. From the back of the court, a man entered. His cloak was black, his eyes glowing faint blue. Everyone bowed slightly. The judge straightened at once. "Lord Dareth Voln," the judge said, "the appointed recipient." Ethan turned to look. He recognized that face. It was the same man who had watched them from the street earlier. Voln smiled thinly. "So this is the child," he said. His gaze shifted to Ethan. "And the human pretending to be her father. How touching." Ethan stepped slightly in front of Lyra. "You've been following us." Voln ignored him and addressed the judge. "End this farce. She belongs to me by purchase order and law." The judge hesitated. "The one-day guardianship is valid until sunset." Voln's eyes glowed brighter. "Then make sure sunset comes early." He turned and walked out, his guards following. The crowd whispered again. Lyra clung to Ethan's sleeve, her voice low. "That's him. The one who took my mother." Ethan felt something cold and sharp inside him. "Then we're not letting him take you." The judge ended the session, postponing final judgment until the next day. Ethan guided Lyra out through a side corridor, ignoring the stares and murmurs. Outside, the sunlight felt weaker. Ethan's mind raced. He needed a plan. He had seen the way Voln looked at her, like she was more than just a child. There was something deeper here. They walked through the lower levels of the city where machines hummed and steam rose from vents. Lyra stayed close, her hand gripping his. "Why did you speak for me like that?" she asked. "Because someone had to," Ethan said. "And because I don't like bullies." She looked up at him with those golden eyes. "You sound like my father used to." That caught him off guard. He looked away, pretending not to care, but inside something heavy turned warm. As they passed under a broken light, he saw a mark glowing faintly on her wrist. It looked like a symbol, burned into her skin, shining through faint blue lines. "What is that?" he asked. She pulled her sleeve down quickly. "It's nothing," but Ethan knew better. He had seen that kind of light before, on machines buried under old battlefields, the kind humans once built and aliens feared. He didn't press her. Not yet, but in his mind one thought formed clearly. This was no ordinary child. And whatever was hidden inside her was the reason powerful men wanted her so badly. The city lights flickered as night returned to Varus Prime. Ethan and Lyra walked through the lower streets, where metal bridges crossed steaming vents and neon signs glowed in strange colors. The sound of engines echoed from above and the smell of burned oil filled the air. Ethan guided Lyra through a side path behind the court. They stopped under a broken tower where no patrols passed. She looked up at him with tired eyes. "Are we safe now?" she asked. "For now," he said. "But that man, Dareth Voln, won't stop." I saw his face. "He's planning something." Lyra hugged herself, her small hands clutching the picture in her pocket. "He wants me for the mark," she whispered. Ethan's eyes narrowed. "The one on your wrist?" She nodded and slowly pulled up her sleeve. The symbol glowed faint blue under her skin, shaped like a spiral made of tiny lines. It pulsed faintly, almost like it was alive. Ethan crouched to look closer. "What is it?" "My father said it was a gift," she said softly. "He told me never to show it to anyone. It's not just a mark. It's a key. A key to what?" She looked around before answering. "To the vault under the city. The one my parents found. It's not a weapon. It's something older. They said it belonged to the first humans who came here." Ethan stared at her. "Humans built it?" She nodded. "Long ago, when humans and my people first met. The vault was locked when the wars began. My parents wanted to open it and give it to both races to end the fear between us. But Voln found out. He wanted it for himself." Ethan rubbed his neck. "So that's why they killed them?" "Yes," Lyra said, her voice shaking. "And they wanted me because I have their code inside me. My blood opens the door. That's why he bought me. He wants to use me." Ethan felt a chill run through him. The whole city was built on secrets, but this was darker than he imagined. He stood and looked down the alley. "Patrol drones hovered in the distance. We have to leave," he said, "before he finds us again." "But the court will come tomorrow," she said. "If we run, they will call us criminals." Ethan looked at her carefully. "Lyra, they already decided what you are. You saw the judge's eyes. That wasn't justice. That was control. We need to get to that vault first." She hesitated. "The tunnels are dangerous. My father said only a true guardian could enter safely." Ethan gave a half smile. "Then it's a good thing you just hired one." They moved through the shadowed streets until they reached the edge of the industrial zone. Huge machines hummed in the dark and the air shimmered with heat. Lyra pointed toward a sealed gate covered in alien writing. "It's through there," she said. Ethan examined the metal wall. "We'll need a passcode." Lyra placed her hand against the surface. The mark on her wrist glowed brighter. The metal shifted, folding away to reveal a narrow tunnel lit by blue lights. Ethan stared. "Guess you already have one." They stepped inside. The tunnel was silent except for the hum of distant power. Strange symbols glowed on the walls and the floor vibrated faintly as if something deep below was alive. As they walked, Ethan noticed small metal orbs floating near the ceiling. "What are those?" "Old watchers," Lyra said. "They scan for intruders. But they know me." Ethan nodded, still alert. He felt the weight of the blaster under his coat. Every sound made him tense. After several minutes, the tunnel opened into a large chamber. In the center stood a huge circular door, covered with ancient carvings. It was taller than any building above ground. Lyra stared at it with wide eyes. "This is it." Ethan looked around. The room was silent, but the air felt charged. "And what happens if you open it?" "My father said what's inside could protect everyone, or destroy everything if in wrong hands." Before Ethan could speak, a metallic voice echoed from above. "Too late for choices, human." He spun around. From the tunnel behind them, dark armored figures stepped out. Dareth Voln's soldiers. Their eyes glowed red under their helmets. Voln's voice followed, calm and cold. "You brought me right where I needed to go. Thank you, human." Lyra hid behind Ethan, her voice shaking. "He found us." Ethan aimed his blaster, but Voln only smiled. "Do you even know what she is?" he said. "That mark isn't a key. It's a weapon. Her kind were made by humans long ago. She carries their last command." Ethan felt the air grow colder. "You're lying, am I?" Voln's tone was soft, dangerous. "When she touches that door, it will obey her. And once it opens, this planet will bow to whoever controls her." Lyra's hand trembled. She looked up at Ethan, eyes full of fear. "I don't want to hurt anyone." Ethan stepped in front of her. "You won't. Not while I'm here." Voln's soldiers raised their weapons. Energy hummed in the air. Ethan took a deep breath and tightened his grip on the blaster. He had only one choice now. Protect the girl, whatever it cost. The air filled with the sound of charging weapons. The red glow from the soldiers' rifles painted the tunnel walls like fire. Ethan pulled Lyra behind a broken pillar just as the first blast hit the ground where they had been standing. Stone and dust rained around them. Ethan fired back once, the bolt of blue energy hitting a soldier square in the chest. The man fell, his armor smoking. But there were too many. Voln's men moved in like shadows, their steps steady, their voices calm. Ethan shouted, "Run, Lyra, move!" She hesitated, but he pushed her toward a smaller passage at the side of the chamber. They ran through it, the floor shaking with each blast. Lights flickered overhead, sparks falling like rain. Lyra's small hand clung to his coat. "They won't stop!" she cried. "They'll stop if they're dead," he said, firing another shot behind them. The beam struck the ceiling, bringing down a shower of metal debris. It blocked the soldiers for a moment. They reached a fork in the tunnel. Ethan looked both ways. One path went up toward the city. The other descended into darkness. He chose the lower path. "Down! They'll expect us to go up!" Lyra followed, her breath quick and shallow. The tunnel grew tighter, filled with pipes and dripping water. The sound of the city faded until only their footsteps remained. Ethan slowed once they were deep enough. "You all right?" She nodded weakly. "Yes, but you're hurt." He looked down and saw a burn across his arm. He tore off a strip of his shirt and tied it tight. "Nothing new," he said. They stopped under a flickering light. Lyra looked at him carefully. "Why are you helping me?" Ethan leaned against the wall, catching his breath. "Because someone has to. And because I once had a daughter about your age." She looked down, her voice soft. "What happened to her?" He paused. The memory hurt like an open wound. She was on a transport ship during the war. It never came back. Lyra stepped closer, eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "I'm sorry." He forced a small smile. "Don't be. Just means I know what it's like to lose something you can't replace." Before she could answer, a noise echoed behind them, metal scraping on stone. Drones. Voln soldiers were sending scanners through the tunnels. Ethan pulled her along again. "Keep low." They moved fast until they reached an old elevator shaft. The doors were half open, rusted with age. He pried them wider and looked down. The shaft stretched deep into the dark. "We can climb." Lyra looked nervous. "It's so far." "Better than facing them." He wrapped his hands around the cables and began to descend. She followed carefully, her small hands gripping the metal. Halfway down, the cables vibrated. Something was moving above. A drone dropped into view, its red eye glowing. Ethan aimed and fired once. The drone exploded, sending sparks down the shaft. Both of them ducked. They reached the bottom and stumbled out into another tunnel. This one was wider and filled with ancient machinery. Lyra touched the wall, tracing strange symbols with her fingers. "These are human marks," she said. "Old ones," Ethan frowned. "You can read them?" She nodded. "It says sanctuary." They followed the markings deeper until the tunnel opened into a large underground transport station. Abandoned trains sat on rusted tracks. Faint blue lights still flickered in the ceiling, powered by something old and silent. Ethan checked the area. "We'll hide here till morning." Lyra sat on a metal bench, exhausted. He tore a piece of fabric and wrapped it around her shoulders. "You did good, kid," she smiled faintly. "You talk like my father used to." Ethan sat beside her, holding his blaster tight. "He sounds like a smart man." "He was," she said quietly. He believed in humans even when others did not. The silence between them grew soft, almost peaceful. But deep inside, Ethan knew it wouldn't last. Voln was still out there and the vault was close. Too close. Then Lyra said something that made him look up. "I can feel it." "Feel what?" "The vault. It's calling to me." "It wants to open," Ethan stood. "We're not ready for that yet." She shook her head. "We don't have a choice. If we don't open it first, Voln will. And then everyone will die." Before he could respond, a distant explosion echoed through the tunnels. The floor shook under their feet. Dust fell from the ceiling. Ethan looked toward the sound. "He's found another way in." He turned to Lyra. "Come on. Time to finish what your parents started." She rose, her golden eyes glowing brighter than ever. Together they moved into the darkness toward the ancient light waiting beneath the world. The tunnel grew wider the deeper they went. Cold air blew from below, carrying a hum that vibrated in Ethan's bones. It was not the sound of machines. It was older, slower, alive. Faint blue light pulsed through cracks in the walls like veins under skin. Ethan walked ahead, his blaster ready. Behind him, Lyra followed quietly, her eyes glowing brighter with every step. "It's close," she whispered. "How do you know?" He asked. "I can feel it breathing," she said softly. It feels like it's waiting. They reached a platform made of metal plates and glowing symbols. In the center stood a massive circular gate, carved with human and alien writing mixed together. The surface shimmered as if it was made of liquid steel. Lyra stepped forward slowly. This is the vault my parents spoke about. Ethan scanned the area. And Voln will be right behind us. He turned to the side of the chamber, finding an old terminal covered in dust. He wiped it with his sleeve. The screen flickered to life, showing strange symbols that shifted into English letters for a second. Human access required. Lyra walked beside him. It recognizes you. Me? He said, surprised. Yes, it remembers your kind. Ethan looked at her wrist. The spiral mark was glowing stronger now, pulsing with the same rhythm as the vault door. What happens when you touch it? My father said the vault would test whoever opens it, she said. If it feels fear or greed, it will destroy them. Great, Ethan muttered. No pressure. Before they could speak again, a low rumble shook the floor. The far tunnel flashed with red lights. Lyra's ears twitched. They're coming. Ethan took position near the gate. Stay behind me. Moments later, Voln's voice echoed through the chamber. You should have left her, human. You cannot stop this. He appeared at the entrance, surrounded by soldiers in dark armor. Their rifles glowed with blue energy. Voln's calm smile didn't hide the madness in his eyes. You brought me to the door of a god. Ethan aimed his weapon. You won't touch her. Voln laughed quietly. Do you even know what she is? Her kind was built by your ancestors, mixed with ours to bridge the stars. She is living technology, a key made from blood. Lyra's voice shook. That's not true. Oh, it is, Voln said. Your parents tried to hide it, but they failed. You were made to obey whoever carries the command code. Ethan fired a shot, forcing Voln to duck behind a pillar. The chamber filled with smoke and light. Blasts echoed off the metal walls. Lyra screamed as sparks rained down. Ethan pulled her behind a console. Lyra, listen to me. Can you open the vault? She nodded, tears in her golden eyes. Yes, but I don't know what will happen. Do it anyway, he said. It's our only chance. She ran to the gate as Ethan covered her. Bullets of energy hit the walls, leaving trails of fire. Voln shouted orders to his men. Don't kill her. I need her alive. Lyra placed her glowing hand on the door. The light spread instantly, racing across the metal in swirling lines. The air filled with a deep hum that made the ground shake. Ethan turned and saw Voln staring in shock. She's activating it, the man said. The gate began to move, the metal folding like water. From within came a blinding white light. A voice echoed in the chamber, calm and ancient. Human pattern detected. Genetic key confirmed. Rebooting core intelligence. Ethan shielded his eyes as the light expanded. Shapes appeared inside. Floating drones, massive machines, and a holographic figure of a woman in silver armor. The figure looked at Ethan first. Designation, Guardian. Then she looked at Lyra. Designation, Heir. Voln shouted, Stop it. Override command, but the figure's voice turned sharp. Unauthorized user detected. Blue lightning burst from the walls, striking Voln's soldiers one by one. Their weapons exploded in their hands. Voln screamed as energy wrapped around him and threw him back against the wall. Ethan grabbed Lyra and pulled her away from the expanding light. What's happening? He shouted. The vault is awake, she said. It knows who we are. The holographic woman stepped closer, her voice calm again. This world was built by both human and alien hands. We left our knowledge here for those who could unite, not destroy. Ethan felt the ground stop shaking. The light dimmed slightly. The machines around them hummed in harmony, like they were alive again. Voln lay unconscious, his armor smoking. Lyra knelt beside Ethan, breathing hard. Did we do it? He nodded slowly. Yeah, you opened it. The holographic woman's voice echoed one last time. Guardian and Heir are now linked. Protect each other. The balance of two worlds depends on you. Then she faded into the air, leaving only silence and a soft glow across the chamber. Ethan looked at Lyra, who still had tears in her eyes but was smiling. You did good, kid. She looked up at him. Now what happens? He looked at the endless light inside the vault. Now we find out what we woke up. The light from the vault faded slowly, leaving behind a quiet blue glow that filled the great chamber. Smoke drifted across the ground and the sound of falling dust echoed like distant rain. Ethan stood still, his blaster low, his eyes watching the machine settle into silence. Lyra sat on the floor beside him, breathing heavily. Her glowing mark had dimmed, but faint light still pulsed under her skin. She looked exhausted, yet her face held peace for the first time. Ethan looked around. Voln's soldiers lay scattered across the chamber, their armor burned black. Some had fled into the tunnels. Voln himself lay motionless near the gate, his weapon shattered beside him. Lyra spoke softly. "It's over, isn't it?" Ethan shook his head. "No, it's just changed." He helped her stand. The vault's walls were now alive with faint lines of light moving like rivers. Strange symbols appeared across the floor, shifting into human and alien words side by side. Ethan could read one sentence clearly: unity through protection. Lyra reached out and touched one of the symbols. The ground opened slightly, revealing a sphere of light floating above the floor. Inside it were thousands of stars, a map of the galaxy. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Ethan nodded. "Your parents found this. This is what they died for." She turned to him. "They wanted both our races to see this together. They said the vault could heal what war broke." Ethan looked at the glowing sphere, his reflection shining in its light. "Looks like it's yours now." She shook her head gently. "No, ours." Before he could respond, a faint sound came from behind them. Voln moved slightly, groaning. His eyes glowed faint blue again, filled with rage. "You think this is victory?" he hissed. "You've only woken what should have stayed buried." Ethan aimed his blaster, but Voln laughed weakly. "That vault will protect you now. But the moment you leave, others will come. They will never stop." Lyra stepped forward, her voice calm. "Then they will learn what happens when people fight for peace instead of power." Voln tried to rise, but the floor beneath him lit up. The holographic guardian's voice returned, cold and final. "Threat identified. Termination authorized." A beam of light struck down, and Voln vanished in a flash of blue fire. The air went still again. Lyra looked away, eyes heavy with sadness. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. "It's done." They stood together in silence. The vault's hum softened, becoming almost like a heartbeat. For the first time, the city above was quiet. No alarms, no patrols, only stillness. When they climbed back to the surface, dawn was rising. Golden light touched the skyline of Varus Prime. The air smelled fresh, washed clean by the night storm. People were coming out of their homes, looking up at the calm sky. At the court dome, drones hovered silently, waiting for orders that would never come. The entire system that once ruled the planet had gone still. Lyra held Ethan's hand as they walked through the empty streets. "What will happen now?" she asked. He looked at the rising sun. "Whatever we make happen," she smiled. "You sound like my father again." He gave a small laugh. "Guess I'm getting better at this dad thing." She stopped and turned to him. "You don't have to pretend anymore. The one-day promise ended." He looked at her for a long moment. "Maybe I don't want it to end." Her eyes shimmered and she hugged him tightly. "Then you are my real father now." He hugged her back, the words sinking deep into his chest like sunlight after a long storm. They walked together toward the horizon. Ships began to descend from the clouds, human ships responding to the signal the vault had sent into space. A message of peace between races once at war. Lyra watched the ships and said quietly, "They will come here. They will ask what happened." Ethan smiled. "Then we'll tell them the truth." "What truth?" she asked. "That a little girl with 5 credits saved a whole world." She laughed softly and he squeezed her hand. "And that I just came along for the ride." The city lights flickered one last time as the sun rose higher. The vault below glowed faintly under the ground, its ancient heart finally at peace. As they disappeared into the morning light, the world of Varus Prime began to breathe again, free, alive, and waiting for what came next. And somewhere deep inside the vault, a quiet voice whispered through the network of machines, repeating the words written in both languages. "Humanity endures through kindness."